Dua Lipa, Levitating, and two lawsuits. We hear about lawsuits happening for major artists, major songs, and whether it's a matter of people just kind of coming out of the woodworks because they're money hungry or
Right.
they genuinely think that they have a claim. I can't tell you how many times I get calls from artists and musicians who think that something was taken from their song. And so we have to go through an analysis of kind of comparing the songs and talking about things like access. What's the likelihood that the artist or their producers had access to the thing that you're claiming they have taken, right? And so then that all usually will lead to, are we going to actually file a lawsuit? Are we going to send a demand letter? So as it relates to Dua Lipa's Levitating song, which of course was a major smash hit, we have two lawsuits.
Out of control song. Banger.
Yeah, and so one of them is in New York, and the basis of that lawsuit is that essentially, the song rips off a 1979 disco track. Now, I have done this one time before, where I actually pull up the lawsuit. I actually pull up the answer, which, by the way, the answer has not been filed yet for either of these cases. But I was kind of thinking that might be interesting for us to do, to go through together. We're not going to do it today, but make sure you subscribe so you can follow all of that if we do get into it. So
And
the
make
first
sure
one's
that
in
I was just going to say, going back to, going through some of these playlists that we have, because you do that for other songs and stuff. We have covered a lot of cases like this. So like, I believe we had like a Chris Brown and Drake one. We have a bunch on there. So
Yeah. And then the other one is in California. And so this is the plaintiff is alleging that the material was taken from their 2017 reggae song. And so what happens is that when a plaintiff files an initial lawsuit, the complaint is filed, and then the defendant, so in this case, Dua Lipa, needs to issue a response. Now, in a lot of instances, they file the lawsuit and name the artist, but they also name the artist, record label, sometimes the artist's,
somebody that was in the room.
they'll name everyone humanly possible. And you do this because sometimes you don't know all who kind of touched it, right, so to speak. And so you want to make sure that you don't exclude someone who might have some liability, because also, who has the money to pay if you win? Right? Now, the juicy thing about copyright lawsuits is that, under copyright law, if you have willfully infringed on someone's copyright, you can get what are called statutory damages and up to $150,000 per claim. So you can understand why maybe some people are accused of being kind of this ambulance chaser, type of person, where they're just going after a potential big payday. Because, even if they don't win, sometimes you'll just settle out of court and you still get a big
Right.
payday. But what
And
I will say is that
I was just going to ask. So, I mean, maybe like, by the more people that you name, it does put that pressure on just to settle it out, because then you have all these other people like, get this off my back. Like, I don't have anything to do with this, but I'm being named in this suit. Just, you better settle that out.
Yeah, exactly. But this can absolutely backfire. And I'm not so sure on this one. I kind of was reading something, but I'm not versed on this. But as far as how this can backfire, if you file a lawsuit and you lose, right, or the court finds that it's a frivolous lawsuit, you can be, pegged with the attorney's fees for the other side who you sued. So now you not only lose, but you also owe them $100,000 in their attorney's fees. So, obviously you have to make sure you find a good attorney, but there are attorneys who will file frivolous lawsuits and sometimes they get into trouble as well. But as it relates to who is representing Miss Dua Lipa, here, I'm going to pull this up really fast. I don't know if you want to pull off this overlay.
Yeah.
So Dua Lipa and I think this photo was from 64th Annual Grammy Awards at MGM. She is looking fabulous. I just feel like this is just such a great outfit. It's working with the hair. Everything is working for me.
That looks like something you would have.
Yeah. Maybe not something I'd wear for top music attorney, but maybe for a Miss Krystle live stream. So in any case, the attorney who's representing Dua Lipa on both of these lawsuits is Christine Lepera. And she has represented, and won cases for Jay-Z and Katy Perry. And this was actually in just the last 2 years that she won these big cases. And, one of the cases as it relates to Katy Perry was the federal appeal for Dark Horse. I don't know if you guys remember this one, but Dark Horse, or she was sued for Dark Horse, based on, potential copyright infringement. And the plaintiff won.
That's
So they appealed the
crazy.
case, and the
And
decision was reversed on appeal. And it was this idea that really is a game changer. So the fact that Christine did this at the appellate level is setting case precedent, and she'll be able to use that in these cases now on behalf of Dua Lipa, which is that, the song contained what's called musical tropes that aren't covered by copyright. So it's this idea that what the claimant is alleging is so kind of generic, right?
right.
So if it's a sequence of like 3 notes, that we will hear those 3 notes so often, so frequently, that you can't kind of pull it out and be like, well, just because it's in this song, it's the exclusive copyright, it's now been infringed. Courts, I mean, because now we get to go after a lot more uh artists and record labels based on this claim. So it's a big deal because this is the first time that we had a ruling to this effect. So again, to the extent that there might be a similar kind of argument made in these answers that we read, I bet it's going to be just like that, to say it's this musical trope of this kind of generic thing that you can't claim copyright protection in.
Yeah, and Dua Lipa has a new song like out that just dropped today. It was with Calvin Harris. Yeah, it's called actually I don't have the track here. I got that. Oh yes, but all of her songs, like that, I was listening to it earlier, and it has that vibe, that same kind of. She has that drum, that bass tone, and that drum kind of vibe that all feels like her Dua Lipa vibe. So like I wonder that with like Levitating and these things, I like that the Katy Perry thing was reversed because that stuff was so generic. And these are just like kind of vibes that she's taking. Like I heard the comparison of the songs, and yeah, I hear it, but I think that the Dua Lipa songs, the Levitating, sounds like a bunch of songs. Like it just sounds like a vibe. It doesn't really sound like it's ripping off something. It just sounds like a really well written song.
Yeah, and this goes to things like lyrics too, guys, right? So when we're talking about, maybe generic lyrics about love in your heart, right? So how many songs have been created and copyrighted that have that kind of theme or those literal words, in a hook? So at some point, I think basically what we're saying is that copyright law is evolving to now take into consideration these things that we hear over and over and over, and they'll become very generic. So Peter from Facebook said, isn't it true, or isn't it the record company's job to catch these copyright infringements so they don't end up in this situation? Yeah. So, as far as the clearing house for a record label, it is their job to make sure that there aren't samples in music, or that otherwise,
Mm.
the producer, the songwriter, hasn't put something in or created something that's going to get them into trouble. So, of course, record labels and their legal departments are doing their best to try to catch this. But, quite frankly, I've been on both sides of this. I represent independent artists, and I had a case where we filed, a claim against a record label because it had an actual sample in it. So it wasn't even just, hey, we think it sounds like our song. No, it was the literal sample had been just pitch shift, and so in that case, it's a little more black and white. And so we have to go deal with it, but they have to deal with us. So in those cases, you either settle out or it evolves into a lawsuit.
That Dua Lipa song with Calvin Harris is called Potion. And if you want to check it out,
Mm.
just dropped today.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some comments. I know not everyone's going to be fans of, artists. Now, obviously, the purpose of the discussions that we have on the show are always to focus on the legal side. But I will say I always want to have a positive chat. I'm never looking for anything other than, some overall positivity, no negativity. Chris, is paying for the winning side's legal fees not a given over there? It's standard from everything I've seen here in the UK, as well as all court fees. Seeking reimbursement of attorney's fees is, in fact, standard. And oftentimes, it's contractual. So, in the contract that the parties sign, it says, hey, if someone violates the terms of this agreement, we will seek our attorney's fees. All right. So, we're going to be tracking this. And like I said, I'm really interested to read these complaints, but then also the answers that Christine, and in fact, let me just see if I could pull this up for you guys really fast. So, I looked her up. This is the attorney. You can see Christine right there. So this is the attorney for Dua Lipa, and then you can kind of look at her experience, and she boy, she Post Malone case. We definitely see the Katy Perry case on here. I mean, so she's definitely become kind of the go-to for these copyright infringement cases for these A-list celebrities. We see Dr. Luke, and in fact, she had a Drake case as well in the last 2 years. So we will be keeping an eye on this for sure.